Hi everyone, we're looking at the Agile and Lean frameworks from the Agile Practice Guide from the Project Management Institute and Agile Alliance. And we're looking at the core methods of Agile. As you go along your Agile journey, you'll notice that there are many different methods that people will use, and they'll be calling them many different things. Usually those methods will be some form of these core methods and maybe some part of these auxiliary methods, but definitely all of the practices that we've looked at, like stand-ups, iterations, using visual management, all of those that we've looked at will be a part of this. It's just good to understand what they are, a little bit behind them, so you can tell if a team is truly Agile or not. This one we're going to look at is feature-driven development. So there are a few things that we need to be aware of before we dive into feature-driven development itself. And the first is that Agile really works on two ways of working, and that is iterative methods, where we're actually iterating towards success. So we're taking feedback and we're putting that back into the next version of the product, and we're improving over time iteratively. And the other one is incremental. So we're actually developing increments of our overall product and delivering those to the customer so they can see, feel and touch those and give their feedback to improve that as well. Those increments could be the features that we're looking at, and that's where feature-driven development comes in. The other really key two principles of Agile are Scrum and Kanban. So Scrum is where we have a backlog of work, and that backlog gets worked on over time, usually over an iteration of around 2 to 4 weeks. So again, this is where our features come into it, because the features will make up the backlog of work, and they'll go into development and then ultimately be released to the customer to see and give their feedback on. And Kanban is just a visual way of actually managing that work. So we'll have the backlog on the left here, and all of the stories, which the individual stories make up a feature, and the different features make up the entire product. So all of those together, now you can see we've got a whole bunch of different Agile methodologies and frameworks and ways of working, core practices that help when we're looking at feature-driven development. So as you can see, because of that, feature-driven development is an iterative model. So we're iterating because we're developing these features bit by bit, and we're getting that feedback and we're putting that into the product over time to iterate and improve. It involves developing the overall model. So that just means the overall idea of what we're wanting to create. And this doesn't have to be for software. It could be for any project. If you're building the pyramids of Giza, you're wanting to build a pyramid, but you will lay it piece by piece and you'll develop it section by section. And that's what we're talking about here. So then it's basically breaking it down. You've got the overall model of what you want. You've got the features list. So now we've got features here, and then we're wanting to plan by those features. So we're planning, and again, this is where Scrum comes into it. We're planning, we've got the backlog of work, and those features go into the backlog of work. We're wanting to develop the ones that are most meaningful to the customer at that given time. And that's usually determined by the product owner in the whole team approach. And we've looked at that already, but basically the whole team approach means we've got the entire team in the one place, co-located usually, and it involves the product owner who represents the customer and can get that customer feedback. We've got the developers, we've got testers, and we've got the Scrum Master usually as well, who facilitates the daily stand-ups. Once we've put those features and we're planning by those features on which ones we want to do, we can design by those features. And this is basically where our Kanban and our visual management and our workflow comes into it. We basically are designing now, then we're testing usually, or it's in progress. You can arrange a Kanban board any way you want, and you don't even have to use a Kanban board really, but it's just a really nice visual management way of working so that you can see exactly where things are up to until they finally get to done. Now, when you design by feature and then you're building by feature, that's when we release that increment, so our incremental way of work. We've released that feature to the customer so they can see, and then we get their feedback and we put that back into the overall model. So did they like this? Did they like that? Maybe it wasn't exactly what they were expecting, but that feedback is essential, and that will change our overall model of what we're releasing at the end, and the different bits and pieces, the different features that we're designing to make up that overall model, and then we'll do it all again. Now, there are a few key software engineering best practices that you'll see. And again, these can relate to anything, not just within software engineering, but any way of work, whether you're managing a team or if you're designing something else like a building or developing a product that's not necessarily a software product. But developing by feature is the one that we saw. So we want to be breaking our overall model down into features and then developing those features either one at a time or having different teams work on different features. So we've got feature teams. This team's working on that feature, that team's working on that feature. They're experts in that particular module of the product, of the overall product. Maybe one is great at password management, maybe one is great at an API management system, or whatever it is. And again, for buildings, maybe one is the garage or the pergola, maybe one is the kitchens and bathrooms. You get the idea. Then we've got inspections, and inspections can be code inspections, so pair programming where we've got one person programming and one person inspecting the code at the same time, or it can be demonstrations and reviews where we're getting the customer involved and getting them to have a look at that feature once it's completed. We've got regular builds, and regular builds also is part of our continuous integration. So we've got all of the bits and pieces, all of these features that are being developed by potentially different feature teams at once, or maybe one feature per iteration of 2 to 4 weeks, however you decide to manage the team. Either way, all of those different features need to go up into the one environment, usually a test environment at first before production, so that you can see whether all of those bits and pieces together have broken the overall product or not. So those features, that's continuous integration, usually done once a day and usually automatically. Everything goes back up into the one environment so you can see if it's all working as a whole or if it's not. You're getting that feedback again on whether it's working or not. Visibility of progress and results, that's our Kanban. And many other different ways. You've got burn down charts or burn up charts where the work you can see over time is being completed or going down towards zero. So you're finishing all of the work, all of those individual features, for example. And then you've got other software engineering practices like configuration management, individual class ownership, and domain object modeling. But the top ones up here could definitely be used for any environment, not just for software. But overall, it's a great way to manage your team and to manage the development of any product that you're doing. And that is feature-driven development.